Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Yeah, it's Matthew 6:33. So you've got God's righteousness. And so he said to know the love of Christ. Well, what Christ loved is described in Hebrews chapter 1. He says, thou hast loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore God, even thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. So, yeah, righteousness has to do with forward movement in a straight line. In gravity always moves in a straight line. In light moves in a straight line. So it's forward movement in a straight line. If it's not straight, then it's crooked. So there's that crooked serpent. It's up and down, it's side to side. It's not straight. So righteousness, yeah, when you look in the scriptures, righteousness shows up more in the New Testament in the 45th book, which is the book of Romans, than any other book in the New Testament. So Paul said, for I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it, the gospel of Christ, it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. And then he explains why the gospel of Christ is the power of God. He says, for therein, in that gospel of Christ, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. As it is written, the just shall live by faith. So righteousness appears more in the 45th book. But if you do a word search, yeah, you can use they got plenty of Bible search app, but I use the Blue Letter Bible. But if you put in that word righteousness, shows up in Romans, in the book of Romans, the 45th book, it shows up 39 times. Well, there's 39 books in the Old Testament. 39 is 3 times 13. Genesis 13 has exactly 13 words. Sodom, Gomorrah is 13 letters. So you have the United States, the 13 colonies. There's 13 stars on a rebel flag. Eu pluribus unum, that's 13 letters. Don't tread on me, that's 13 letters. So, yeah, in Genesis 14, in the 13th year they rebelled. So 13 is a number associated with rebellion. 76. 7 plus 6 is 13. So, yeah, you can follow those numbers like breadcrumbs, but Isaiah has 66 chapters, like the Bible has 66 books. Well, righteousness shows up more in the book of Isaiah in chapter 45 than it does in any other chapter. And so in Isaiah 45, righteousness, that word righteousness, shows up 6 times. So 39 times in the book of Romans, 6 times in Isaiah chapter 45. There's your 45 again. It's like rightly dividing the word of truth. So you have what's upright, which is what's at a 90-degree angle, and if it's rightly divided, it's 2 45-degree angles. Yeah, so scientifically, sunlight, when it hits the water at a 45-degree angle, can transform water from a liquid to a gas without heat. Yeah, it's amazing. So righteousness shows up the most times in the 19th book of the Bible, which is the book of Psalms. And it shows up in exactly 45 chapters in the book of Psalms. So you think about 1945, there's the end of the war. So he maketh wars to cease. And the work of righteousness is peace. So Jeremiah 29:11, I know all the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. So all God's thoughts, he's the God of peace. He said, when I speak, I'm for peace. So, yeah, therefore being justified by faith, we have peace with God. So before we're justified by faith, he says we're enemies in our minds. So the war has ceased. There's no more striving. There's no more fighting with God. No more questions. No more accusation. Why did God do this? Why did God let this happen? Why didn't God do something for me? So, but he said, seek ye first the kingdom of God in his righteousness, God's righteousness. So, Galatians chapter 3 verse 13 said, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. So the last word of the Old Testament is curse. That's the 39th book. So 3 times 13 is 39. So Philippians chapter 3 verse 9, Paul says that I might be found in him, not having mine own righteousness, which is of the law, but the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Christ. So he says, when the Son of Man returns, shall he find faith on the earth? So there's the righteousness of the law, and then there's the righteousness of God. So Paul said that I might be found in him, not having mine own righteousness. Yeah, it's a big difference. So his righteousness, own righteousness. Yeah, you can see the book of Job. You have the Lord ask Job, wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? So Job's friends ceased to answer him because Job was righteous in his own eyes. So, yeah, there's all those things.